Ruby Racer woke up with the sunrise. Ruby Racer had the same dream. Ruby Racer checked Ruby Racer's reflection carefully. Today was practice day at the track. Ruby Racer arrived at the famous Speedway Stadium. Ruby Racer's wheels trembled with excitement. Stella Shine, the famous coach, rolled over to Ruby Racer. Stella Shine smiled kindly. Stella Shine positioned Ruby Racer at the starting line. Remember, Ruby Racer, believe!
Ruby Racer went into the first turn way too fast. Ruby Racer's wheels slipped. Ruby Racer's heart raced.
Ruby Racer pulled over, feeling terrible. Ruby Racer watched other racers speed by. Every champion started exactly where Ruby Racer is now. Stella Shine struggled too at first, but Stella Shine didn't quit. Suddenly, Pepper Patch zoomed into the pit area. Pepper Patch was Ruby Racer's mechanic. Pepper Patch checked Ruby Racer's tires while Stella Shine explained the racing line.
Ruby Racer needs to brake before the turn.
Thunderbolt, the reigning champion, rolled past with a mean laugh. What's a tiny pink car doing here? Thunderbolt mocked.
Pepper Patch immediately defended Ruby Racer. Don't listen to Thunderbolt, Pepper Patch said bravely. As the sun set, Ruby Racer practiced the turn again. This time, Ruby Racer braked early like... Back in Ruby Racer's garage that night, Ruby Racer was exhausted but happy. The next morning, Pepper Patch introduced Ruby Racer to Crystal Coast. Crystal Coast loves meeting new racers.
Then Dusty Desert arrived. Dusty Desert was an off-road racer trying track racing. Dusty Desert thinks this will be quite an...
The friends trained together every day. Ruby Racer, Pepper Patch, Crystal Coast, and Dusty Desert pushed each other. After weeks of practice, Ruby Racer was getting really good. Ruby Racer's turns were smooth. The day came to register for the championship. Ruby Racer's wheels trembled as Ruby Racer signed up. Ruby Racer's friends threw a celebration party. Pepper Patch sprayed festive foam everywhere.
Training intensified as championship day approached. Ruby Racer practiced every day. Pepper Patch fine-tuned Ruby.
The night before the championship, Ruby Racer couldn't sleep. Ruby Racer kept thinking about the big race tomorrow. What if Ruby Racer made mistakes?
Stella Shine came early that morning. Stella Shine could see Ruby Racer was nervous. Remember why Ruby Racer...
Championship day. The stadium was HUG. Thousands of car fans filled the stands. Ruby Racer
saw the other championship racers. They all looked so professional with fancy paint jobs and sponsors.
Thunderbolt rolled up to Ruby Racer one last time.
Go home, little pink car!
But this time, Ruby
Racer's friends gathered around.
Ruby Racer's got this!
We believe in Ruby Racer. Show them what Ruby Racer can do. Make Ruby
Racer lined up on the starting grid. Ruby Racer's heart pounded. This was it! The championship
Green light! Ruby Racer shot forward with the pack. Cars surrounded Ruby Racer on all sides. Ruby Racer
finished the first lap in 7th place. Thunderbolt was way ahead in first. But Ruby Racer remembered Stella.
Ruby Racer dove to the inside going into turn 5. Ruby Racer raced side by side with another car. Coming out of the turn, Ruby Racer pulled ahead, 6th place. Every lap Ruby Racer passed the pit wall, Ruby Racer's friends were cheering. Pepper Patch showed Ruby Racer's improving time.
The technical section tested every racer. Other cars made mistakes, going too wide or too fast. But
With 5 laps to go, Ruby Racer was catching 3rd place. Ruby Racer's speed was incredible. All Ruby Racer's training paid. Ruby Racer made Ruby Racer's move. Inside line. 3rd place tried to block, but Ruby Racer was too fast. Side by side through the turn. Ruby Racer glanced in Thunderbolt's mirror and saw Ruby Racer. Thunderbolt couldn't believe the little pink car was in 3rd place. For the 3 laps left, Ruby Racer gave everything Ruby Racer had. 2nd place was right there. Ruby Racer's engine screamed at maximum power. Ruby Racer flew past second place. Just like that, Ruby Racer was in second. Only Thunderbolt was ahead now. The bell rang. Thunderbolt was ahead, but Ruby Racer was right there. This was it. Ruby Racer found speed Ruby Racer didn't know Ruby Racer had. Every perfect turn Stella Shine taught. Every adjustment Pepper Packers Ruby Racer made Ruby Racer's move. Inside line, Thunderbolt and Ruby Racer were side by side. Neither would give up. They crossed the finish line together. Ruby Racer couldn't tell who won. Thunderbolt didn't know either. The whole stadium. Ruby Racer waited with Ruby Racer's friends. Ruby Racer had given absolutely everything. But Ruby Racer came in second place. Ruby Racer lost the championship by inches. Ruby Racer felt
Remember where Ruby Racer started? Ruby Racer could barely make it through one turn. Now Ruby Racer just raced. Then Ruby Racer heard the crowd. They were cheering for Ruby Racer. Ruby Racer saw young girl cars looking at Ruby Racer.
Ruby Racer stood on the podium in second place. Ruby Racer's silver medal gleamed. Ruby Racer was really good racing. Ruby Racer pushed Thunderbolt harder than anyone. Ruby Racer realized Ruby Racer had earned even Thunderbolt's respect.
Ruby Racer's friends celebrated like Ruby Racer won first place. Ruby Racer was amazing. Reporters wanted to interview Ruby Racer. How does Ruby Racer feel? They asked. Ruby Racer thought carefully. A young pink car rolled up to Ruby Racer. Ruby Racer inspired me, the young car said shyly.
That evening, Ruby Racer drove slowly around the track alone.
Stella Shine found Ruby Racer on the track. Stella Shine didn't need to say anything. They sat together while
The friends plan next season. We'll train even harder. We'll be ready. Ruby Racer looked at next year's championship.
Training resumed with new determination. Ruby Racer practiced harder than ever. Pepper Patch improved Ruby.
New racers arrived for the new season.
they looked nervous, just like Ruby Racer once was. But now,
Taught a nerd club racer.
it's okay to struggle, Ruby Racer said kindly.
Ruby Racer.
Ruby Racer raced all season. Sometimes Ruby Racer won. Sometimes Ruby Racer didn't. But Ruby Racer learned from every... Ruby Racer qualified for the championship again. A whole year of hard work paid off. Ruby Racer...
Hell, the night before the championship, the team met. Stella Shine reviewed strategy. Pepper Patch confirmed Ruby
This championship morning was different. Ruby Racer wasn't nervous. Ruby Racer was confident. Fans cheered. Ruby Racer and Thunderbolt saw each other. Thunderbolt nodded respectfully. They weren't enemies anymore. They were respected.
Perfect start! Ruby Racer launched like a rocket. No mistakes. Ruby Racer was immediately in third place.
Ruby Racer raced smart. Ruby Racer didn't waste energy early. Ruby Racer stayed in position and learned the leader's path. Ruby Racer saw Ruby Racer's opportunity. Ruby Racer went for it. Perfect move. Ruby Racer took second place. Now only Ruby Racer was catching Thunderbolt. All Ruby Racers saved energy unleashed now. Closer, closer. Ruby Racer was right there. Thunderbolt couldn't escape. 2 laps to go. Final lap. Ruby Racer and Thunderbolt battled for every inch. Side by side, back and forth. Neither would give up. Final straight. Ruby Racer and Thunderbolt were equal. Both gave absolutely everything. Finish line coming. Ruby Racer won.
By the smallest margin, Ruby Racer won the championship. Ruby Racer, champion!
Ruby Racer stood on the top step. Ruby Racer's gold medal sparkled.